"You don't even look mad," she said. She said it with a mouth half full of penne arrabbiata. The fork was still spinning between her fingers. Red sauce clung to her lip like it wanted to stay and watch the scene unfold. And all I could do was blink at the steam rising off my plate and wonder how the hell we got here. "I'm not mad," I said. My voice cracked on the last word. It came out quieter than I expected, like it belonged to someone else. Someone smaller. She leaned back in her chair, tilting her wine glass just slightly before setting it down. "See? That's what I mean. That's why I did it." It. She said it like I was supposed to already know. But I knew. God help me, I knew. I wanted to feel something, she added. Anything. I stared at her plate, and then mine. Identical pasta. Same portion. Same table. But she had a secret inside her, and I just had sauce. The kind that stains white shirts and memories. "Who is he?" I asked, and I hated the way I asked it. I hated the tremble in my voice, like a boy asking if the monster under his bed was real. She smirked. Actually smirked. Why does it matter? Because everything mattered. The time. The place. The fact that she chose dinner, of all moments, to turn me into a ghost in my own life. "I just want to know what I'm being compared to," I muttered. She laughed. A single breath through her nose. Not cruel, not loud. Just dismissive. Like my pain was a side dish she didn't order. "He's not better, Darrel. He's just different." Different. That word lodged in my throat harder than her confession. "You always say you want honesty," she said, reaching for her glass again. "Well, here it is." I stared at her. The woman I shared toothbrush drawers with. The woman who once cried watching me assemble a bookshelf because I told her I wanted it to be perfect. And now she was telling me she had a lover because I wasn't exciting enough. Because I didn't scream or cheat or flirt with danger. Because I was safe. Because I was the guy you come home to. Not the guy you text at 2 a.m. from the back seat of a stranger's car. I didn't yell. I didn't flip the table. I didn't even ask her to stop seeing him. I just said, "I hope he likes penne." She raised an eyebrow. "What?" I stood up slowly. "Because you're going to be eating a lot of it alone." I left the restaurant. I left her. But not before I left a note on the bill. It didn't say goodbye. It didn't say I love you. It just said, "I told the waiter it was your birthday. Enjoy the song." And as I walked to the car, I swear I heard the tambourine. I didn't go home that night. I drove around aimlessly, not knowing where I was going. Just knowing I couldn't return to the same bed where she'd probably lain texting him under our blanket. I pulled into a gas station at one point, bought a hot dog I didn't eat, and just sat there with mustard on my thumb like a man whose life fell apart in the snack aisle. It's funny, when someone confesses something like that, you think the worst part is the betrayal. But no. The worst part is realizing they planned it. She picked the restaurant. She ordered my favorite wine. She curled her hair. And she waited until halfway through the meal to detonate her little truth bomb, like a chef waiting for the perfect moment to add salt. I spent the night in my car, parked behind my office building. The silence was unbearable, but at least it wasn't filled with her voice telling me how different he was. I didn't sleep, just stared at the ceiling and tried to remember the last time she touched me like she meant it. The next morning, I went home. The house was too quiet. No footsteps. No music from the bathroom speaker. Just a note on the fridge. Went to work. "We'll talk later." Signed with a heart like it was a grocery list. I don't know what came over me, but I walked into the bedroom, straight to her nightstand, and opened the drawer. It had never been locked. She always said she had nothing to hide. Inside was her journal. She's kept one for years. Tiny leather-bound notebooks with gold-rimmed pages. I never read them. She told me once they were her therapy. I respected that. Trusted her. God, I was such a joke. I opened the most recent one. The first few pages were harmless. Lists, notes, sketches. But then I saw a name. Elliot. Not a coworker. Not a friend we both knew. Just Elliot. Saw Elliot today. He said something that made me laugh so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. Elliot's hands are rough in a good way. Like someone who works with stone. Darrel's hands are soft. Safe. My chest collapsed inward. We met again in his car. I didn't plan for it to happen. I just needed to feel like a woman again, not a roommate. I couldn't read anymore. I dropped the journal. My fingers felt numb. I didn't cry. Not yet. That came later, when I walked into the bathroom and saw her razor still wet on the counter. It was like everything about her had changed except the mess she left behind. And then I saw it. Under the sink. A small velvet box. At first, I thought, stupidly, that maybe she'd bought me something. Some twisted apology. I opened it. Inside was a key, one I didn't recognize, and a folded receipt from a hotel downtown. Room 408. Paid in cash. No names. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I didn't know what it meant, but because I finally realized I wasn't living with my wife. I was sharing a roof with a stranger who had already checked out. I just didn't notice the door closing behind her. So I made a decision. I took the key. I put the receipt back where I found it. And I closed the drawer like nothing happened. That night, I asked her if she wanted to go to dinner again. Her eyes lit up. Really? I smiled. Really? Because if she wanted honesty, she was going to get mine. Just not in the way she expected. She wore the same dress she'd worn on our anniversary 2 years ago, navy blue, low neckline, the one that made me nervous the first time I saw her in it. I remember thinking she looked like someone I could never fully deserve. Now I couldn't look at her without imagining her laughing in another man's passenger seat. "You're quiet," she said as we walked to the restaurant. I shrugged and said I was just tired. She accepted it too easily. I had made a reservation at the place where we first celebrated buying the house. She probably thought it was romantic. It wasn't. It was tactical. I needed her to feel comfortable. I needed her to talk. She ordered the same thing she always did, roasted duck with cherry glaze. I ordered nothing. Told her my stomach hurt. That part wasn't a lie. As she sipped her wine and told me about some funny thing her coworkers said, I nodded, smiled, and thought about the key in my pocket. I hadn't slept since I found it. I had stared at that hotel address for hours, memorizing the layout online, imagining every detail. The hallway, the lock, the sound the door would make when it clicked open. I needed answers. But not from her. Not yet. If she was going to keep secrets, so was I. The next afternoon, a Saturday, I told her I needed to run errands. She didn't even ask where. She was on the couch watching a baking show, her phone lighting up every few minutes with texts she thought I didn't notice. Probably Elliot. Maybe worse. I drove across town to the hotel. It was nicer than I expected, modern lobby, glass elevator, front desk staff that didn't even glance at me when I walked past like I belonged there. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. I needed time to breathe, time to rethink what I was doing. But every step up to that 4th floor only made the pressure in my chest grow heavier. I thought about turning around at least a dozen times. I didn't. Room 408. I stood there for a long moment, then slid the key in. It fit. The door opened with a soft click. The lights were off. The blackout curtains drawn. The air was cold, like the thermostat had been set low on purpose. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me. It looked like a room designed for cheating. Neutral colors. Minimalist furniture. A king-size bed with perfect hospital corners. The kind of place you could walk into and leave without a trace. But there were traces. A scarf on the floor, navy with small white anchors. I'd seen her wear it before. Lipstick on a plastic cup by the nightstand. An empty bottle of wine in the trash. And then I saw the drawer. I hesitated, hand hovering above it, heart hammering in my ears. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Not of her. Not of Elliot. But of me. Me, standing in our kitchen, pouring coffee. It was blurry. Taken through a window. I stared at it, my blood turning to ice. On the back, written in red ink. Does he know yet? I dropped it. Something snapped in my brain. Not in a dramatic way, but quiet. Like a cable slowly breaking under tension. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being watched. Played. There was a second envelope beneath the photo. Sealed. My name written on it in her handwriting. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, envelope in hand, for what felt like an hour. Maybe more. The blinds were still shut, and the only sound in the room was the low hum of the air conditioner. Steady, constant, numbing. Like a machine designed to drown out bad decisions. I traced the edges of the envelope with my thumb, feeling how crisp it still was, like it had been placed there just recently. Like it was meant to be found today. Like she knew I'd come. I finally tore it open, careful not to rip the handwriting. It was unmistakably hers, that looping cursive with heavy pressure on the downstrokes. She always wrote like she was etching her thoughts into the world, as if afraid they might disappear otherwise. Inside, just one page. Darrel, if you're reading this, then I guess I never got the chance to explain things properly. Or maybe I was too much of a coward to say it to your face. Either way, you deserve to know. All of it. I didn't plan for this to happen. Elliot wasn't supposed to mean anything, but he saw me in a way I hadn't felt in years. You've been kind, safe, but somewhere along the way, I started feeling like I was fading inside our life. Like I'd become wallpaper in a house I helped design. This isn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. And that's exactly the problem. You never did anything wrong. And I needed something that felt alive, even if it was ugly. That was it. No apology. No explanation beyond vague metaphors and poetic cowardice. She didn't mention the photo. Didn't explain why someone had been watching me from outside our home. Didn't tell me how long this had been going on. And didn't even bother to say she loved me, not even in the past tense. The letter was so clean, so careful, so emotionally neat, like a breakup note between high school sweethearts who didn't want to make a scene. But this wasn't high school. This was my marriage, my home, my life. I put the letter back in the envelope and left the room without touching anything else. But as I stepped into the hallway, I heard a door open behind me. Room 410. A man stepped out. Late 40s maybe. Dark gray coat. Aviators. Indoors. He paused when he saw me. Then smiled. Just slightly. "Darrel," he said. Calm. Like we knew each other. I froze. "Do I know you?" He didn't answer. Just nodded toward room 408. "She said you'd come eventually." My stomach dropped. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but failing. He turned away without answering, walked down the hall, and disappeared around the corner like it was the end of a scene he'd rehearsed 100 times. I stood there for another minute, heart racing, mind spinning. Then I turned back toward the room, opened the door one more time, and checked the closet. Empty, nothing but hangers. But taped to the back wall, where no one would casually notice, was a second photo. This time it wasn't of me. It was of Lisa, at our kitchen table, talking on the phone, smiling. The timestamp in the bottom corner? 5 days before she told me. That meant this wasn't random. It wasn't some careless affair. It was staged, framed, watched. And suddenly, I realized I wasn't part of her secret. I was the target of it. The drive home felt different this time. I didn't have the radio on. I didn't chew gum or fiddle with the AC. I didn't blink much, either. My mind was too loud for anything else. Every streetlight looked suspicious. Every parked car felt like it was holding someone watching. I caught myself checking the rearview mirror every 20 seconds. Maybe more. I knew I should have been angry. Most people in my position would have gone full destruction mode. Yelling, demanding, exposing everything. But something about all of this felt too coordinated. Too clean. Lisa had always been emotionally distant in conflict. But this wasn't just distance. This was design. A man waiting outside the hotel. A second photo hidden behind a wall. A letter that sounded like it had been edited twice. It wasn't guilt. It was performance. When I walked through the front door, Lisa was in the kitchen cutting vegetables like nothing had ever happened. The TV was playing some crime documentary in the background, and the smell of garlic and olive oil filled the air like it was trying to smother my memory. "Hey," she said, not even turning around. "Did you get the thing from the store?" I lied. "Yeah, it was out of stock." She nodded. Didn't press. She didn't even ask where I'd really been. I watched her closely. Her movements. Her tone. The way she smiled at the narrator's voice on TV like she was genuinely amused by a story about a woman who poisoned her husband. It felt like I was living with an actress between takes. And that's when I realized I didn't want answers anymore. I wanted evidence. So that night, after she went to sleep, I downloaded a security app on my phone. I had an old webcam in the closet from when I tried remote work during lockdown. I plugged it in and set it up in the living room, angled just slightly toward the front door and the hallway. Nothing obvious, just enough to see who came and went when I wasn't looking. I didn't stop there. I installed a recorder under her car's dashboard. Basic, cheap, but good enough. I'd seen tutorials online. I told myself I wasn't doing it out of paranoia, but out of necessity. She invited strangers into our life. I had a right to know who they were. For 3 days, nothing happened. She went to work, came home, laughed at her phone, told me she was tired, went to bed early. Rinse, repeat. I started to believe maybe I was wrong. Maybe Elliot was the whole story. Maybe she'd ended it, and the rest was my anxiety spiraling out of control. But on the fourth night, around 2:12 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I was alone in the guest room. Lisa had told me she wasn't feeling well and needed space, her new favorite phrase. I opened the app. The camera had picked up movement in the hallway. The clip loaded. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. It showed Lisa walking past the living room in a robe. She wasn't alone. A man followed behind her, wearing black, his face partially hidden by a hood. They didn't speak. She didn't look back. He didn't make a sound. They just walked together, silently, into our bedroom, and the door closed behind them. I watched the clip 10 times. No audio. No expressions. Just movement. Calm, practiced movement. Like they'd done it before. Like this was routine. I wanted to burst into the room right then, but I didn't. I needed more than suspicion. More than gut instinct. I needed a reason no one could twist. No way for her to gaslight me again. So I waited. The next morning, she made coffee like usual. Asked if I wanted eggs. Kissed me on the cheek like the night hadn't happened. I almost threw up. Then I checked her car's audio from the previous day. 3 conversations. 2 were short. Work calls, harmless. The third, 27 minutes long. Her voice, clear and familiar. His voice. The same one that said my name outside room 408. I didn't sleep that night. I tried. I lay in bed with the lights off, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the refrigerator clicking on and off, over and over again, like it was mocking me. Somewhere down the hallway, I could hear Lisa breathing in her sleep. Slow even. Peaceful. Like the world outside her head hadn't started to rot. I must have replayed that hallway clip 100 times. Each time, looking for some sign I'd missed. Hesitation in her step, a glance over her shoulder, something to tell me this wasn't as cold as it looked. But no. She walked with him like she was guiding a guest through a familiar home. She didn't even bother to whisper. She didn't need to. They were comfortable. And now I had a voice. That man's voice. Recorded. I still don't know why, but I played it over and over again, long after I'd memorized every syllable. He spoke like someone who thought very carefully about how he was being heard. Calm. Precise. Not angry. Not passionate. Just in control. Don't worry. He's softer than you think, he said. And Lisa laughed. God help me, she laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a guilty laugh. Just one of those low, satisfied ones she used to let out when she got away with something small, sneaking extra dessert, or skipping laundry for a week. Except this wasn't dessert. This was me. The next morning, I drove her to work. She asked me to. She said her tire pressure light had come on again. Funny how many things started breaking once I started asking questions. She wore a dark green dress. Her hair was tied up. She looked beautiful, the kind of beautiful you'd normally compliment without thinking. But I didn't say anything. I was too busy watching the building she walked into. 3rd floor, end of the hallway, an office full of marketing people who probably thought she was charming and clever and had no idea what she was doing after hours. I didn't drive away. I parked across the street and waited. At first, it was just boredom, people going in and out, coffee cups, awkward phone calls on the sidewalk. Then, just before noon, a man exited the side door of the building. Black coat. Hood up. I didn't recognize his face, but I recognized his walk. He moved like someone who was used to being invisible. That kind of slow, calculated pace, like a predator in a movie pretending to be a neighbor. I followed him. I didn't mean to at first. I just pulled out behind him, stayed 2 car lengths back, telling myself it was nothing. Just curiosity. Just me being pathetic again. But he didn't go far. 3 blocks later, he parked in front of a small strip mall. It had a dry cleaner, a vape shop, and, oddly enough, a locksmith. He went inside. I waited in my car, palms sweating against the steering wheel, my brain spinning scenarios faster than I could hold them. When he came out 20 minutes later, he wasn't alone. He was talking to someone. A woman. Blonde. Not Lisa. They weren't romantic. They didn't touch. But they were serious. Talking low, close, like people planning something. He handed her a small plastic bag, something light. She looked inside. Nodded. Then they both looked around. Not suspiciously, just methodically. Like people trained to notice details. I sank down in my seat, heart pounding. This wasn't an affair. This wasn't about emotions. This was a setup. The man drove off first. The woman followed. I let them both go. I drove home, if you can call it that, and sat in front of the bathroom mirror for what felt like an hour. I stared at myself. The bags under my eyes. The faint cut on my cheek from shaving too fast the day before. The shirt that still smelled like garlic from dinner 3 nights ago. I looked like a man unraveling. And the worst part? The man in the mirror didn't even look angry. He looked small. Like he was watching himself fall apart, and couldn't stop it. I opened the cabinet to splash water on my face, and that's when I saw it. Inside the drawer, tucked between a bottle of ibuprofen and a half-used pack of floss. A flash drive. Unlabeled. New. Not there the day before. And I hadn't put it there. It took me nearly 15 minutes to plug it in. I stared at that flash drive like it was ticking. I turned it over in my fingers a dozen times. No markings. No brand logo. Just black plastic and the slight, almost imperceptible weight of something you're not supposed to find. I told myself I'd wait until Lisa left the house. But I couldn't. I had to know. So I shut the bedroom door, drew the curtains, and booted up my old work laptop, the one she didn't know I still used. No shared logins. No cloud sync. Nothing traceable. The drive clicked into place, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then a single folder appeared. Open__D. I didn't breathe as I clicked it. Inside, just one file. Test_Darrel. MP4. No metadata. No date. No properties. Just the name. Like whoever made it wanted me to understand something immediately. This wasn't for blackmail. This wasn't an accident. This was personalized. I double-clicked. The screen went black for 2 full seconds. Then, my living room. Night vision. Grainy, but clear enough. There I was, sitting on the couch, asleep. Head tilted back, mouth slightly open, like a man who had given up pretending he was okay. I looked dead, or close to it. Then someone entered the frame. A man. Black coat. Hood up. He moved with such casual confidence, it made my skin crawl. Like he belonged there. He walked right up to me, leaned in, and for a second, just watched me. Then he held something up to the camera. A small card. On it, one word. Fail. The screen cut to black. That was it. No timestamp. No audio. Just that silent judgment. Fail. A private verdict rendered by someone who clearly thought I was on trial for something I hadn't agreed to. I ejected the drive and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and bounced under the dresser. But the panic didn't go with it. I paced the room for a long time, trying to piece it together. Was this a threat? A joke? Was Lisa behind this? Or just part of it? Was I being punished? And for what? The air felt thinner by the minute. I opened a window, closed it, opened it again. Nothing helped. When Lisa got home that night, I watched her like she was a stranger. She kissed me on the forehead, talked about something boring her boss did, laughed at her own joke. I laughed too, but only to study her smile. Because now I was sure. She knew. Not just about the camera. About everything. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about cheating. Not anymore. It was about control. Someone, maybe more than one person, was orchestrating something. And I was the experiment. The next morning, I pretended to sleep in. She left early. Said she had meetings. I waited 10 minutes, then followed. But I didn't go to her office. I went to the address listed on the hotel receipt from days earlier. The same one where I found the photos and the envelope. Not the hotel. The billing address. A different location entirely. It led to a narrow building wedged between 2 antique shops. No sign. No logo. Just a glass door with a single letter printed in white. V. It was locked. No buzzer. No bell. Just a small keypad and a camera in the corner that turned toward me the moment I reached for the handle. I stepped back. Then my phone buzzed. No number. Just a message. You're getting warmer. I turned in circles, scanning the street. Nothing. No car. No movement. No one standing around pretending to check their phone. But I felt it, eyes. Somewhere. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove. No destination. Just movement. Because staying still felt like giving up. Later that night, when I finally returned, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked into the kitchen. On the counter, another flash drive. No note. No envelope. Just the drive. But this time, it was labeled. Final. I held the flash drive like it might bite me. Final. That word felt like a dare. Like the kind of thing you write when you know someone is on the edge and needs just one last nudge to either jump or run. I plugged it into the same laptop, my hands shaking worse than before. I stared at the screen as the folder opened on its own. No file this time. Just a live window. A webcam feed. It was me. Right there. Staring at myself in real time. Sitting in my room, hunched over the laptop, pale and hollow-eyed and paranoid. And then the screen split. The second feed opened beside it. Not me. Lisa. She was sitting in a small white room. One light bulb. No windows. A desk. The same laptop in front of her. She was watching me. Her lips were trembling, her eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. She looked broken. Then a text box appeared at the bottom of the screen. You both watched. Now choose. 2 buttons appeared. One green, one red. No labels. No timer. Just a choice. My first instinct was to yank the drive out, to throw the whole laptop out the window and walk away. But something in me paused. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel afraid. I felt done. Done being manipulated. Done being used. Done being small. So I did something no one expected. I shut the laptop without clicking anything. And I walked away. I didn't confront her. I didn't demand answers. I didn't play their game. I packed a single bag, took my spare keys, and left a note that said only one thing. I choose me. I drove 6 hours without a plan. Just out of town, into the hills. Found a quiet Airbnb run by an old couple who thought I was a novelist on deadline. I didn't correct them. For the first few days, I didn't sleep much. But slowly, the silence began to heal me. I read books I hadn't touched in years. I walked barefoot in the grass. I stopped checking my phone. And on the 7th day, something strange happened. I laughed. Genuinely laughed. At nothing. Just the sun warming my face and the wind knocking over a glass I forgot outside. It felt like being born again. No one followed me. No more flash drives. No more notes. I don't know what they wanted from me. I don't know if they were testing loyalty, measuring pain, or just playing God. But it didn't matter anymore. Because I was free. Weeks later, I filed for divorce. No dramatic scene. No courtroom showdown. Just a quiet closing of a chapter one no longer needed to understand. She didn't contest it. She didn't reach out. I think, maybe, she was trapped too. And maybe, she didn't pass the test. But I did. Not by winning. Not by fighting. But by letting go. I've started writing again. Just little things. Stories. Memories. The kind of thoughts you forget to notice when you're too busy trying to survive someone else's chaos. And if you're reading this, if you feel like you're losing your mind in a maze someone else built, walk out. Don't finish their game. Start your own. Mine began with a flash drive, but it ended with a sunrise.